Chunky boy, it's time for another album review. I don't know where that
Kyle's not here and we're just gone totally informal. I kind of love it.
So for this review,
I also do like the idea of just leaning into the podcast where we've taken this from. Kyle's window's there and it's just a shot of his micro penis.
Listen to the rest of the podcast to find out what that's all about. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Norwegian Death Pop quintet, Blood Command. The band's new album, Praise Armageddonism, will be released on July 1st on Hassel Records. So, it's a Norwegian band and Kyle's not here. What has gone down?
Well, I mean, in fairness, we're in safe hands. Everything is in English.
This is true. This is true, yeah.
We'd be fucked if it wasn't. There'd be no micro penis jokes. No. Like even a little bit.
This is album number 4 from Blood Command, which follows up their critically acclaimed 2017 release, Cult Drugs, which projected the band onto sharing stages alongside the likes of Refused, Gallows, Biffy Clyro, Kvelertak, and more. The writing on Praise Armageddon has begun as far back as the summer of 2018 and had already been completed with the band's now former vocalist. In February 2020...
We had to go there, didn't we? We just had to go there.
Let's just rip the band-aid off and go with it. February 2020, Blood Command, to their surprise, found themselves in need of a new vocalist. Guitarist and producer Anderson describes it as the stars aligning, when he at the same time learned of the dissolution of another band called Pagan, fronted by Nikki Bruman. Bruman herself was no stranger to Blood Command's music, even acknowledging them in interviews years prior as being a band of which she was a huge fan. For me,
rock star all over again.
It is, yeah. Blood Command ticked every box that my old band lacked, she said. A lot of Blood Command's music, hold on, I've lost my place, thematically draws on the Heaven's Gate movement, vocalist Bruman begins, referencing the sect that began in the 1970s and ended with the mass suicide of 39 members in 1997.
Yeah, the males all castrated themselves, by the way, if you didn't know that.
Dear.
Yeah. Lopped them off, Dave. We don't need these. We're no shagging.
A lot of people refer to it as a cult, but they called it a religion. Heaven's Gate, which was headed by Marshall Applewhite.
Yeah, who's creepy and weird. I know everything about this. You've got the right guy on this recording. Cool. Kyle would have been fucking useless. Ain't no church burnings here.
Marshall Applewhite believed they would ascend in a spaceship and leave the planet together.
Yeah. Stop laughing, Dave, because there's no way to prove that they didn't ascend into a spaceship.
Okay.
I mean, all we found was their bloated dead bodies. But for all we know, they're partying right now, laughing at us.
Could be.
We didn't get COVID because it doesn't exist up here.
Blood Command's music explores the theme that if you're with us to the end. The ethos behind Praise Armageddon is simple. I wanted more of everything, Anderson reveals. I wanted our pop stuff to be more pop, our heavy stuff to be our heaviest ever. That's always the goal with Blood Command. Can it be more Blood Command than the previous record? Okay, so I'd heard of Blood Command, but I can't remember ever listening to Cult Drugs. Had you heard them before? Or heard of them?
Yeah. So Cult Drug was one of those ones that started doing the scenes. Right. They're a band that kind of weirdly get locked in a lot with that kind of that horror scene of like bands that don't have necessarily a horror sound but have a kind of style or a look, or like Blood Orchid are a great example of that, who like heavily take their influence from that world, so they get lumped in. So they were, and I'll be honest, I wasn't huge on Blood Command on paper. I should be, but I wasn't until this album.
Yeah, well, actually, when I heard the first single, I was like,
you thought Duncan?
This is Duncan. This has got to be a Duncan album, surely. So what did you make it? What did you think?
100% a Duncan album.
Yes.
This is fucking great, and I just want to there'll be people out there that are saying this is where he hands in his metal card, and to that I say you can suck my dick and fucking like it. They use, like, when they see like death pop or blackened pop or whatever they want to use. This band, like, pop is at the forefront in the way the vocals are delivered, but the music in the background is still metal. It's very catchy, very infectious metal.
Yeah.
And the songs are structured in such a way that they have a pop sensibility in terms of their structure. For the most part, we will get to the saxophone, but which just seems to be the, like, did I miss the bit where people were studying saxophone? They were like, right, you've got two options here. You can go through the funk soul door or the metal door. Like, there's no middle ground for a saxophone player now. It's one or the other. Yeah. Right?
Even Kenny G's moving over to Imperial Triumphant now. He's fucking done with that.
This is the bit where I was like, the world has fucking lost it. Like, this is what COVID has done. Kenny G appeared on an Imperial Triumphant song, and if you've not heard it fucking is amazing. The saxophone playing on it as well should be as amazing, but it shouldn't work as well as it does. We'll get to that. That would have been a reaction and a half if we'd had that chance.
It would have.
The danger on this, I personally felt was, and I liked the previous vocalist. I thought the previous vocalist was really, really talented. But there is, when they're talking about the stars aligning, there is a monumental shift up here in terms of range. For a start, she's got a bigger range, and two, that kind of pop aesthetic works so much better here. Where to begin with this? I did not get that theme at all from this, at all, which is fine. It's bookended for the most part with, although I should have, because the album closes with a track called Last Call for Heaven's Gate. Should have been a little warning. But it kind of is bookended with samples talking about stuff from Revelation.
Oh, that's right.
Though I saw a pale horse. Although Heaven's Gate didn't believe in the Bible, so once again, it's kind of, I can see where I got confused, but we're not going to pick at that. And like the first track kicked in, and that was like Praise Armageddonism. Kicked in, and that's, I thought, alright, I know what I have here. This is a known quantity. This sounds in keeping with the stuff I've heard Blood Command 4, so this is fine. And it's, it's a bit heavier. We don't really revisit that sound until the last track, and maybe, I think it's either Nuns, Guns and Cowboys or the Villains Monologues, one of the two, that brings back a heavier sound. But for the most part, everything in between that is very much 80s tinged awesomeness, right? Like track 2, Saturday City kicked in, and the first thing I thought of was, if Bananarama was a metal pop group, Banana Rockma. This is what they would sound like. It's full of like kitschy sort of 80s synth hooks, big old like bouncy guitars, vocal melodies. Her vocal melodies are so fucking good, all memorable. I want to stress that right across the board. If I don't mention it for every single track has a big old melodic hook that I loved. And it kicked in, and it was the first track where I was like, is this the single for the album? Because they've always had those pop leanings and pop sensibilities. Like, they've always done that in their previous stuff. So it was always I kind of almost felt like it was like one for the pop, one for the metal, one for the pop, one for the metal. And this feels better fused. The End Is Her, next track that kicks in. Once again, it has a kind of more kind of bouncier beat. Very hook laden, very, very catchy. And the album just kind of continues to build on that. You get bits with big old disco beats on the drums, sections which felt like hey Mickey, you're so fine, you blow my mind, hey Mickey. There is a track that like has that element, it kicked in, I was like, it's reminiscent and memorable of hooks you've heard on very popular songs.
Yeah.
But taken and incorporated and changed in such a way where you get a whiff of it without it sounding like, oh, you've just ripped that off. It's plagiarism, pure and simple. And as he like you, like, for even that the vocals at times, the melodies, the lyrics they're singing about are of darker content, there is something very engaging about them. I was having a ball with it, and like I say, about the midway mark, it's either Villain's Monologue or Nuns, Guns and Cowboys. It gets a bit darker again at the start, and I was like, all right, so the back half's going to be more metal tinged.
Yeah.
And then they hit out with I Just Want a Movie Ending, which is... I love this song, man. Yeah. I like all the way through. It is huge sounding. It has the gang vocals. Has a really, really, really cool synth part, which is it's not prominent in the mix. It kind of sits behind. It just adds this counter melody to what she's doing. The vocals are poignant. It's a really, 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 really well crafted kind of pop metal song. It's really, 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 really well done.
That was the song that I'd heard. That was the single, and I was like...
Yeah, well, you picked spot on. Like, I heard that. The thing about it is, like, Blood Command, in a lot of respects, kind of sound like how I always imagined, if you took out the fairy tale keyboards, how a band like the Birthday Massacre should sound. I've kind of got I've always had my issues with the Birthday Massacre in that I think they're pretty much a perfect band, except occasionally the vocals do something that I don't necessarily agree with. Like, they sing in a tone that I don't like, or they're too floaty, or they don't focus in on a really catchy melody. They kind of go off and do their own little thing. And that's where Blood Command maybe beat them, because everything here seems laser focused to write the catchiest melody it can. And so by the time I got to that, I was like, this is perfect. This is like perfect for their sound. This is everything they've been building towards. This will shift units. If I'm a record label, this will sell. I could easily market this. Cool music video. I can put this out. People are going to be singing it. It could play at the rock clubs. People will sing it live, like when we're playing. Like, this is, to me, one of those songs that are going to be like the hallmark of the band moving forward. It's going to be like crowd pleaser, for sure. But then the album then kind of focuses back down. Burn the Blasphemer brings things back into kind of like a kind of steady road to what I thought was going to be a comfortable landing. And then the last track kicked in. I remember checking the runtime going, this is like 8 minutes long. What are we doing here? And about 2 minutes in, a saxophone started playing. I was like, what are we fucking doing here? And then the track takes a noticeable break into some sort of weird South American Latin, like I'm walking down the streets of Rio, sort of vibe, and it starts to lead back out, and then starts bringing in those sampled elements again of the essentially spoken word sections of the Book of Revelations, as a way to bring out. In summation to everything I've just said, this is a really, really, really well written album, full of hooks, full of earworms. Vocally, it's fucking immaculate. Absolutely immaculate. If Kyle was here, he would note that there's some effects going on in some sections, and she layers up her vocals with what almost felt like a pitch shifter,
right?
To achieve a higher level. But I don't know if it is a pitch shifter and isn't actually her singing those notes, but there's an effect on them.
Yeah.
Whatever she's doing, it's fucking great. I loved it.
Yeah.
I think the songs are really well composed. None of them sound samey, even though they are all very poppy. There's good switch ups between them. Production's fucking great.
Yeah.
Once again, bass is nice and prominent in their mix. I really enjoy that about that. When you do this, I think of bands like like Raunchy, who do the death pop side of things. They do it more like more aggressively than Blood Command do, but you can never really make it what the bass was doing because it just kind of sat behind what the guitars are doing. Now, the bass has its own presence, its own prominence here, and works really, really, really well. Without knowing what the theme was, I think thematically you don't even need to understand who Heaven's Gate are, although you should look into it because it's fascinating and terrifying. But yeah, like this to me was. I was excited about this because, like I say, they're a band that people have told me in the past, "Oh, you will like Blood Command," and I've always kind of felt like I just didn't get. Like, people had missed the element that got me interested in stuff that was more pop leaning, or maybe more 80s influenced, or like that kind of amalgamation of the two styles.
Yeah.
And here it's all on display, and it's done really, really well. And whilst I'm sad that the previous singer, left the band, they've acquired a thumping good one. Yeah. And this, her vocal range is fucking excellent. So yeah, I'm a big old fan of Praise Armageddonism. You picked well from the well of things to let Duncan listen to.
Nice.
What about you? Like, I like this can go one of two ways for you. Really.
Yeah. I'd heard the first single, and I was just like, what is going on here? Like, and the video's mental.
I can't wait now. I cannot wait.
Shell suits and stuff, like it's crazy.
Which, once again, that's what they wore. The people in, I think, Heaven's Gate wore. It was white shell suits, if memory serves. So, yeah.
So I hadn't heard the previous release, so I wanted to give that a listen just because they changed vocalists.
Yep.
I didn't realise the previous vocalist was also female, but it makes it slightly easier to compare as well. But both have like kind of similar qualities vocally, but I much prefer the new vocalist.
It's the range, man. It's just honestly range is it's the execution of that range. It just feels more comfortable.
Yeah, I felt like our tone overall was more unique than the previous vocalist, and I think her delivery in a lot of places is a little bit more aggressive, especially on the kind of heavier parts of the release. And I think what Anderson said about wanting to push the limits of the kind of styles and genres they cover have absolutely been accomplished on Praise Armageddon. I think the kind of like pop, almost like pop punk type choruses here have even more kind of hook to them than they were on Cult Drugs. Like, I only needed 2 listens to this for those hooks to be like,
they're there, yeah.
They start to kind of permeate your brain. And I think this is an album you'll make up your mind about fairly quickly. Yeah. It's not like overly complex or like technical in its structure. The songs are very contemporary with very kind of conventional arrangements. So it's not one that you'll need like a lot of time to really comprehend. It's fairly clear what the goal is from the get-go. And this is, it's an album of catchy, pop-infused, punk rock kind of tracks. It's got energy absolutely brimming for it. It's got a few kind of darker, more kind of aggressive type tracks scattered amongst the album to keep it interesting and varied. And like being from the kind of Norwegian punk rock scene, there's obviously a little hint of like bands like Kvelertak or even like Turbonegro in there. But the use of melody in some of the guitar parts gives some kind of nice nods to bands like Refused as well. Whilst there are like similarities to those bands, I like you said, I didn't feel like this was like a bootleg version of those bands. I think Blood Command still have their own personality, and I think vocally Nikki's style has kind of reinforced that like streak of individuality even more. I think like you said, I think she is fantastic on this album. The kind of ferocity she delivers on tracks like Burn the Blasphemer is completely like captivating, but when she mixes that fierceness with that kind of like sugary kind of melody on a track like Saturday City, it's like such a cool contrast. I noticed when I looked at their like their previous albums, they always like to finish on a slightly lengthier track. And this one is like no different again, with like that it's almost like 8 minutes. And when I was listening to the album, I was like, right, how are they going to pull this off? Like, like for their style, they're generally kind of like single length tracks. That like the pop punk or punk rock bands don't tend to really do long songs. But, you know, in the first 3 minutes of that track is fairly kind of straightforward, kind of punk rock. Then they pull out the sax, and it goes down a more kind of experimental route. I get what you were saying as well. Like, for me, it was like, I almost had this like Diablo swing orchestra type.
Yeah, there's a kind of almost a kind of Cubano sort of vibe that comes out of like this is like Latin feel that just like, you do not fucking expect at all. And it's like it is jarring to as well incorporated, but there is a noticeable switch between the two styles, even though the sax is kind of carrying over and linking the two. It is kind of like.
It was cool though. I thought it really worked. And then obviously the track kind of wraps up. There's a kind of repeating riff that comes back in at the end with more sax and that vocal sample you're talking about. So actually they pulled it off pretty well for a song of that length. This was like a surprising kind of hit for me. It has it has very like kind of summer vibes all over it. I can see myself sticking this on in the good weather because it has a lot of like that kind of like sunshine filled bangers on it. You know, you get Saturday City, A Questionable Taste in Friends, Nuns, Guns, Cowboys, and obviously I Just Want That Movie Ending, which could be the kind of anthem of the album. But it's, you know, there's parts of it that, you know, I've heard it done before by other bands, and little things that are reminiscent of other bands, but I think they do this really well. Definitely.
Well, you just mentioned the bands that they played with. There is a versatility of the sound where maybe not even at a headline level, you could put this on and get everyone's in the right frame of mind, everyone's bouncing and they're in the right mood, and then the headliner comes on.
Absolutely.
I just like, I mentioned obviously Birthday Massacre or adjacent, but even an artist like Poppy, you could put Poppy on with them as well, even though her music goes much heavier. In some respects, there's enough crossover there and there's enough linking there that'd be a great fucking double bill to see, man, honestly. So it maybe shouldn't work as well as it does, even though that road has been tried and tested. There are plenty of bands that mix those pop elements with that kind of punkier side of things and whatnot, and you know, it's a well-trodden road, but like when it's done right, that's where you can appreciate it. Some people just write off as like kind of almost selling out or feeling not taking it seriously, but there is a noticeable difference between the bands that do it well and have those elements which elevate them and the ones that are just your standard kind of thoroughfare. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so ratings for Praise Armageddonism by Blood Command. What are you thinking? What's your score for this one? A 4.5. I'd like yourself. This is, in fact, I'm tomorrow. I'm going to be driving out to go and see Nine Inch Nails. Had to plug that. Had to plug it. And the wife's going to be in the car with me. And this is what we're going. She's not listening to it. She's going to fucking love this. This is what we're going to be listening to on the way out. I've played this like an unhealthy amount of times. Not sicking myself of it at all. This will be getting played right to the end of the year. It's not a end of year list album by any stretch of the imagination, but it is one of those albums that I just feel good listening to it, and you need those albums for balance. So 4.5.
Nice. I'd probably go 4 out of 5 on this one. Very feel good, very catchy, well produced, and some really, really, really good vocals as well. I can see myself coming back to this as well. As I said, it's got a very kind of summer vibe about it, so I'll probably repeat this throughout the year as well. That is the review on that one. It drops on July 1st on Hassle Records. You can check them out at facebook.com/Blood Command. They also have a Bandcamp link if you want to check out the album when it drops on the 1st. Let us know what you think. There's a few singles out already. Let us drop us some comments, let us know, and then when the album drops, happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it.